As you're coming in, feel free to help distribute books to your homerooms. They're in the aisles. Good morning, KML. Please rise. We'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As you're finding your seats, your homeroom teachers will be passing out a book to you. You can just leave it closed until you get directions from Pastor Sadler this morning. We're going to take a little bit of a deviation from our normal chapel schedule to spend some time in a spiritual growth topic. You see it on the screen for you. I just encourage you to please focus on that at the moment. So electronics off and put away. And then let's welcome Pastor Ben Sadler.
Every year I make my family watch my favorite Christmas movie. It's not really not about Christmas, but maybe you've seen this movie. It's called It's a Wonderful Life. Some people call this one of the greatest movies in history. Maybe you don't agree with that. But the movie is about a man named George Bailey who's got these big dreams. When he's in high school, he wants to see the world. He wants to become an architect. He wants to do these great big things. But after his father passes away, he's stuck in Bedford Falls taking over the family business. And after they lose some money, he thinks that they might have to go through bankruptcy or maybe get charged with fraud and go to jail. And because life is not working out the way he thought, it's on Christmas Eve that he goes to a bridge and he thinks about taking his own life. Now in the story, in this movie, he has this guardian angel, kind of this dopey old guy named Clarence. His angel comes up to him and rescues him from going into the water, from taking his own life. And once they dry off and they're sitting there, Clarence asks George Bailey, "Why did you want to take your own life?" And he said, "I wish I'd never been born. My life is not turning out the way I wanted to. I wish I'd never been born." And so Clarence, with a little help of divine magic, he shows George Bailey what it'd be like if he had never been born. If he was never born, he never would have saved his brother's life when they were young children. If he had never been born, he wouldn't have helped a local drunk get sober. If he had never been born, his wife would have never found a husband. His children never would be born. And so by the end of the movie, George Bailey finds out that he had a wonderful life because he had a meaningful life. Now, I love that movie because I always wish that it was true, but to be honest, there's been times in my life where, I don't know if you've ever felt like this, I was right there contemplating those same things as George Bailey, finding myself on the bridge. When I started out in ministry, I'm a pastor right now, and I was a pastor in Orlando, Florida, of a Spanish-speaking congregation, and it was a church that was floundering, a small group, about 30 people, and I would try really hard, and we'd lose a bunch of people. People would move away, and then I would work really hard, and we'd get back up to 30 people, and my family was frustrated because they didn't speak the language, and life was not turning out the way I hoped it was, the way I envisioned. But thankfully, I have a wife who kept on pointing me back to this truth that my life still had meaning, my life still had purpose. And it was about this time that I found out, and I learned about a person named Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was born in 1920. He's a Jewish psychiatrist and psychologist and neuroscientist who, back in the 1930s and 40s, he was developing a type of psychology as he observed human beings that was different than most people. At this time in Europe, all of the psychologists, kind of the founders of psychology, like Sigmund Freud and his disciple Alfred Adler, they had a Darwinian viewpoint that we were just evolved animals and that our only purpose in life is for pleasure, for procreation, to avoid pain. We're just animals. That's what they said. We're just an animal. Well, Viktor Frankl, he said we're more than animals. And we have higher desires, higher motivations. We need something bigger and greater than just pleasure or pain. We need purpose. We need to know that our life has purpose. Well, right as he was developing this idea of purpose, that we're driven by meaning, driven by purpose, the Nazis came knocking on his door. And because he was a Jewish man, he got taken off to a concentration camp. His wife of 6 months, they'd been married for 6 months, she was taken away and taken to the gas chambers. His parents were taken away with him. They went to the gas chambers. He had taken his life's work, this whole idea, this theory of meaning, that we are meaning-driven creatures. He had written that all down in a book he called Doctor of Souls, and he had sewn it into his jacket, hoping to hide it from the Nazis. And they confiscated that pretty quickly, and they burned it in front of him, and he really had nothing. And he had to come to find out, all the ideas I had about human nature, are they true? Or am I just making this up? Is it really true that we're fueled by meaning? Because what he saw was the Nazis were trying to take away any kind of identity, any kind of meaning for their prisoners. They would take away their name and tattoo a number. People were just numbers. They would take away their clothes and just give them a jumpsuit. They take away meaningful work and make them do meaningless work. And they wanted them to believe that their lives had no meaning, that they had no purpose. And those who believe that lie, what do you say, run into the wire, give up on life, commit suicide. But Viktor Frankl, he said, if you could believe that your life still had meaning, your life still had direction, that there's a greater story that you are a part of, that was your only hope to stay motivated, to survive. And he did survive. And then he spent the rest of his life taking over different psych wards. Early in his career, he took over a psych ward that was filled with young people about your age, had a really high suicide rate. And he started asking them questions about purpose and meaning. And the suicide rate went down to 0 because they rediscovered meaning in their life. And so he summed up his whole theory of humanity in this phrase: whoever has a why can endure anyhow. And I latched onto that in my ministry. I started to believe that my life had purpose. And even though my circumstances didn't change, I was able to keep going in ministry. And so here's what I'm hoping to do. I'm hoping today that somehow I could be like your Clarence. This is from that A Wonderful Life. This is Clarence the angel, that I can come alongside you today. And even if none of your circumstances change, that everything stays the same in your life, you would gain a different perspective. That you would come to believe that you have a meaningful life because you have a wonderful life because you have a meaningful life. Now, I put all this into a book that you guys graciously, there was a donor that paid for every one of you to get this book. And the reason you have this book in your hand is because I presented here some of these concepts about a year ago, And your faculty really gave me some great feedback, some help, and then I met with your student council, and your student council gave me some more great feedback, helped me understand some of these concepts, and they turned it into a book, and now you got that book. So I want to thank you. You've been, in some way, your faculty, your leadership has really helped me put this all together. All right, now before we go any further, what I want you to do is open up your book to page 15. Now, hopefully you all have a writing utensil. In the book, there is a whole assessment, a meaning assessment. Now, we don't have time for you to go take the whole assessment, but the idea behind this, and I hope you do sometime take this assessment, the idea here is that your psychology, your motivation, what motivates you is the idea of meaning. And so if you compare yourself to a car, the gasoline that you run on is meaning. And so I just want to ask you, on a scale from 1 to 10, how full is your meaning tank? Did you wake up today excited to go to school, excited to see maybe some friends, excited to take on a project? Or maybe you don't really have purpose right now, and you feel apathetic. So I just give me a number between 1 and 10. Write that down. 10 being, I'm really motivated, I have meaning and purpose in my life. I have direction. 1 meaning, I don't have direction, I don't have meaning, I don't have purpose. So where are you at? And it doesn't matter where, no judgment here. Like I said, I've been in times in my life where I'm a 2, where I'm a 1. And I hope by the end of this that maybe if you're a 2, maybe by the end of the presentation you could be a 4. If you're a 6, maybe by the end of it you could be an 8. All right, so write down a number. Go ahead, write down a number. And once you have a number, would you be willing to tell the person next to you what your number is and why? Let's take a couple seconds here. What's your number and why? All right, very good. I'm hearing you guys quiet down a little bit. Very good. It sounds like you're able to share. All right, so wherever you're at, how do you find more meaning in your life? How do you increase the meaning tank? How do you grow in meaning? Well, I think it begins by believing you're part of a meaningful story. So I want to talk a little bit about this idea of a meaningful story. Now, over the years as a pastor, I'm always looking for illustrations for a sermon, and I used to use an illustration where I would take a long rope, and it's a pretty common illustration, and I think it can be helpful in some ways, but I don't use this illustration anymore where you have this long rope, and at the end of the rope you have a little piece of tape. And in this illustration, what I would say was, this rope represents eternity, and this little piece of tape represents your earthly life. And I would say something like, why would you waste all of your time focused on this piece of tape, this small part of your life, when there's eternity that's so much longer? Now, the reason I don't use that illustration anymore is because it gives the impression that what happens in this little piece of tape, our earthly life, has no meaning, has no purpose. Only thing that matters is what happens after you die. Now, that's bad psychology. If we're meaning-driven creatures, purpose-driven creatures, to tell somebody that what happens in life doesn't matter really undermines your psychology, and it's bad theology. Jesus never said our life on earth doesn't matter. He said we should be careful that we don't try to gain everything in this world and forfeit our eternal life, but he never said it didn't matter. See, sometimes we give the impression that our life here on earth is like being on the Titanic. Like, all right, this earthly life, going to school, getting married, having a job, it's like being on the Titanic. It doesn't really matter because, someday it's all going to go down. And the only thing that really matters is jumping on the life raft and floating away to be with Jesus in heaven. And so I think that is an incorrect understanding of our story. We can give this impression that we live in a two-part story. That we have the earthly life, the physical life, where we have sports, where we have music, where we have work, where we have relationships. But that earthly life doesn't really matter because the only thing that matters is part two of the story when you die and go to heaven. And so it doesn't matter what you do, just believe in Jesus so when you die you go to heaven. That's not really how the Bible tells our story. The Bible, although there's some parts of that that are true, it doesn't usually describe our life as a two-part story. The Bible describes our life as a four-part story. The Bible is this story that you're a part of. The story begins with creation. That God creates a good world with animals and activities and relationships and marriage and work and all these things that we really love. But then in part two of the story, the snake, the serpent, evil, slithers into our world. And with the snake and our disobedience, what slithered into our world is sin and death. We have intruders into God's good world. But because of sin, because of death, because that intruded into God's good world, God came into this world in Jesus Christ in part three of the story. He lived for you. He died for you. He rose for you. And what happened to Jesus is a preview of what's going to happen to you and the whole world in part four. What happened to Jesus, that he rose from the dead, is going to happen to you and the whole world. In part four of the story, God is not going to take you necessarily out of this world. He's going to take the sin out of this world and the death out of this world. There's a hymn that we sing often at Christmas time, Joy to the World. Do you know the hymn Joy to the World is not actually about Jesus first coming at Christmas? Joy to the World is actually written by Isaac Watts as an Advent hymn about Jesus' second coming. And he gets it right. That he comes to make his blessings flow as far as the curse is found. So he's going to come and remove the curse. In Romans chapter 8, it says that all creation has been groaning, waiting to be liberated from its bondage. And so on the last day, what we should picture is that God's going to transform our lowly bodies to be like Christ's glorious body. That's what it says in Philippians. That he's going to liberate this world. That's what it says in Romans 8. That God is going to make all things new. That's what it says in Revelation. It doesn't say God's going to make new things. He's going to make all things new. And when Jesus pictures the last day, Judgment Day, what he describes in Matthew 19 is he says, at the renewal of all things. At the renewal of all things. Now this is the story consistent throughout the whole Bible. I got to keep moving here. This is consistent throughout the whole Bible, especially when you think of Isaiah and the prophets. So in the time of Isaiah the prophet, if you'd open up your Bible, Isaiah 65, Isaiah lived like 700 years before Jesus. And every time Isaiah would look out at his people, what he would see was that when they built houses, they wouldn't usually get to live in them. Because people like the Assyrians and the Babylonians would come in and ransack their houses. They'd plant these vineyards, and they'd wait for the years it takes to develop its fruit and make wine. But Isaiah saw that God's people never got to enjoy the fruit or make that wine because, again, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Philistines, different groups would come in and take away their grapes. And then there was all this hostility between, lions chewing up the lambs and wolves coming in and destroying their flocks. And so when Isaiah had a vision, when God gave Isaiah a vision of the life to come, he didn't picture the life to come like a Far Side cartoon, like a cartoon where you're sitting up on clouds playing a harp in some boring existence up in heaven somewhere. What Isaiah pictured in Isaiah 65 is God making all things new. And he says, you know what? When the Messiah comes again and he makes everything new, we're going to build houses and live in them. No one's going to take away our house. We're going to be able to plant vineyards and enjoy their fruit. And you know what? The lion is going to lay down with the lamb, that all of creation will be in harmony. You see, that's what we long for. We don't necessarily want to be taken out of this world. We long for this world to be the way it was always supposed to be. And that's how you can find meaning every day, is to have a vision of life like Isaiah did. What I call having a last day lens. All right, so I have another activity for you. All right, open up to page 33. On page 33, I have a little activity called the last day lens. What I want you to write, and you see those three kind of panels there? What I want you to write in the left panel is your highs and lows. What are your highs and lows for today? Or maybe yesterday? All right, so do that. Write your highs and lows. What are the good and the bad that's happened? Write down your highs and lows. Maybe when you woke up with a headache. Maybe you were late for school. But maybe you had a good breakfast. I don't know. Whatever it is, write your highs and lows. Maybe you're in a sport, but now you have an injury. Maybe you're in the play, but you didn't get the role you wanted, but you're still having fun in the play. Maybe you have a girlfriend or boyfriend, but you're going through a little hard time right now. All right, you got that? Now I want you to be like Isaiah. Isaiah had a vision that God gave him, that he could envision the world after the Messiah would come. And he had all the things that he enjoyed, houses and vineyards and animals, but without the curse. So now in that left panel, I want you to see your day, and how is your day going to be like on the last day? When Jesus returns and makes all things new, what's your vision? What is that going to look like when you have only the highs and God has transformed your lows into a blessing? Like when Jesus was resurrected, he still had the wounds, but now they were scars of love when he showed him his hands and feet to the disciples when he was resurrected. All right, so in the left panel, I want you to describe what life is going to be like on that last day. What are all those highs that are still going to be there? And how is God might transform your lows, all right? So just take a moment to envision that. Write down all of the highs and God how he's going to transform the lows. This might be new for some of you. This might be a whole different way to look at life. Maybe you'll finally get geometry, right? You'll finally understand advanced biology in the life to come. All right, why is this so powerful? I feel like this gives us an enduring hope. I think this is what you're going to see over and over again when you read the Bible. You're going to see them giving you a vision. The prophets do this, the apostles do this, Jesus does this, as a way to see the life that's going to come, and you're going to imagine, and so the good things that you enjoy right now, the highs that you enjoy right now, a good walk, a good game, beautiful music, playing, making art, all these things that you guys do that you really enjoy, a great friendship, you can say that's a slice of the world to come. That's a slice of the resurrection. And then the garbage that you have to endure, maybe the garbage in your own life, the sin in your life, the problems in your life, the miscommunication in this world, whatever it is, you say, I can endure that right now because I know that's not going to be part of the life to come. Okay? So it gives you a way to look at your life through this last day lens. Now, this is the whole point of my book, is to find meaning as you look. That's the tagline of the book, is to live every day in view of the last day. And so in the book, I go through all these different areas of our life. How could we look at our life, our identity, in view of the last day? And in the book of John, it talks about this, that you are the children of God. That's your identity. And when Jesus comes, you're going to be like him. You're going to see him as he is. So you can look at your identity in view of the last day, and your calling and your worship and relationships, work, failure, suffering, death. Now, I have 3 teenagers, and I said to my teenagers, all right, I got 50 minutes to talk to a room full of teenagers. What out of these subjects should I talk about with the little time I have? And my son said, they're always talking about identity at school. They're talking about identity all the time. And important as that is, like, they've already heard the identity thing. Calling, they're always talking about what we're going to do with our life. They're always talking about calling. They've heard that. He said we should talk about friendship, and we should talk about suffering. So that's what we're going to do with the 28 minutes that we have left, is talk about these 2 subjects. And then hopefully, if there's something of these other subjects that you really interest you, hopefully you read the book. All right? All right? Okay. So let's dive in to this idea of meaningful friendships. How do you find meaning in your relationships? When my son was in middle school and he would go to football practice, he goes to Wisconsin Lutheran, he goes to Wisco, and about half an hour away from home, like boo, right? Boo, Wisco. But he's up there, and so I would go about a half an hour to drop him off for practice, and then instead of going home, I would bring my bike. So I started riding my bike around during the game, or during his practice, and another father was there, and he said, oh, I'll bring my bike and we'll ride together. And we started to realize that we both loved exercise and working out. And so he says, I'll bring a barbell. And I said, all right, I'll bring my row machine. I'll bring my row machine. And so during his football practice, we would do like a full-on throwing around weights and row machines out in the parking lot. And we knew that the other parents were like, those guys are so weird. What are they doing? But we didn't care because we started this friendship around something that we really loved. And he continues to be my friend. Actually, just texted me on the way over here. This is my friend, Josh Gister. We've done some CrossFit competitions together, and we just built this friendship. And that's what friendship really is. Friendship, according to C.S. Lewis, it's where 2 people have the same interests, at least 2, it could be more than 2. And you say to that person, you too? You like doing that too? I thought I was the only one. Might be weird to everybody else. Might be weird to throw around weights in a parking lot, but not to you, not to me. That's cool to me. It might be like your love of music or Pokemon or Minecraft or a certain sport or a certain thing or making paper airplane. Doesn't really matter. But having a friendship starts by having a mutual interest. And so if you're struggling with friendships right now, go pursue something. Go do something and find someone to do it with you. Find your tribe, find your group who likes to do something with you. Now, friendship, when Viktor Frankl, when he looked at what we can do to create meaning in our life, we don't feel like we have meaning, we don't feel like we have direction. If you feel apathetic, if you feel aimless, if you feel like you don't have direction, if you feel depressed, one of the main sources of meaning, especially right now at your age, is relationships. And so this is what he said. So Viktor Frankl, he said, the more one forgets himself by giving himself to a cause to serve or another person to love, the more human he is. So as a scientist, as a psychologist, Viktor Frankl would see that like a lot of our problems are because we're thinking about ourselves. We're analyzing ourselves. Like, am I good enough? Am I lovable? Does anybody like me? Why don't I look like that other person? I don't like how I look. I don't like how I think. I don't like, all these different things. We're looking at ourselves. And you want to get depressed? Look at yourself all day. We're not made to do that. But the more we give ourselves to a relationship, a friendship, when we start thinking about what do they need? What's going on in their life? What are they struggling with? You want to take away so much feelings of maybe anxiety or sadness in your life? Invest yourself in somebody else. Help somebody else. Give yourself to somebody else. And that's what the Bible says. That's not just good psychology. The Bible says that. So when Paul was writing to the Galatians, he says, the only thing that counts. Now, when someone in the Bible begins a sentence with that, you should listen up. The only thing that counts, the only thing that counts is faith in Jesus, expressing itself through love. The only thing that counts is having faith in Jesus and expressing that as you give yourself to other people, as you love other people. Now that's hard. That's hard to do. It takes sacrifices. It takes time. It takes energy. But it's worth it. It's important. It's worth it. And it's not only worth it right now, but we want to look at our friendships in view of the last day. Have that 4-part story, the last day lens with our friendships. And Jesus helps us do that. It's in Luke chapter 16 where Jesus tells this kind of weird parable. He talks about a parable about a shrewd manager. Where a shrewd manager, he's going to get fired. He's lazy and he's going to get fired from his job. But before he gets fired, he starts making dishonest deals with all of his boss's clients. So he starts making some dishonest deals, and he says, maybe when I get fired, they'll welcome me over there because I'm going to make some dishonest deals and build some friendships so that when I get fired, somebody will welcome me. Other friends will welcome me. And then Jesus makes this application. He says, don't copy the dishonesty, but you should invest in friendships. You should spend money, spend time, make sacrifices for friendships. Why? He says this, I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. What does this mean? Friendship takes sacrifice. It's much easier just to like somebody's post on Instagram than to actually buy them a coffee or buy them a gift or spend some time calling them up and listening to their problems. Friendship takes work, it takes money, it takes effort. But Jesus says, not only does those sacrifices create meaning in your life right now, but on the last day, those friends are going to be part of your welcoming committee. That those friendships that are based on Jesus, they're going to be those who welcome you into eternal dwellings. That on that last day, when Jesus comes back again, you're going to be greeted by those people that you invested in right now. And so these friendships you build right now, it's kind of cool. Like when in high school, you have these incredible friendships or these interactions with people. You're all kind of in this school together, and so you have lots of interaction. And then at graduation, you're going to go your own ways. And you might lose touch with some of them. But the friendships that you built on Jesus and based on love are going to endure into the life to come. And so here's a little activity I want you to do. I got another something for you to do here. Open up to page 84. Oh, sorry. Commit yourselves to your friends. That's the take-home point. Commit yourselves to your friends. Open up the book to page 84. All right. Now, when Jesus came to this world, he didn't write a book. He didn't start a business. He didn't go to school. To save the world, the first thing that Jesus did, what did he do? Got some friends. Built a tribe, built a group of people. And he had 12 friends, just like the 12 tribes of Israel. He had 12 disciples. But he only really let 3 of them into the most intimate relationships and events in his life, Peter, James, and John. He had like an inner circle. Now, the reality is, you're not going to be able to be friends with 1,000 people or 100 people or even 50 people at a deeper level. You're probably only going to be able to be vulnerable and devoted to maybe 3 to 5 people max. And then you have these acquaintances. And then you have like just people you know by name, but you don't see that often. So I want you right now to write in that middle circle, who are some of the most important people of your life? Maybe 1 or 2 people, maybe it's mom and dad, maybe it's brother or sister, maybe it's a cousin, maybe it's your best friend. And then I want you to write, so like Jesus, maybe you have 3 in the middle, maybe 12 on the outside that are kind of acquaintances, different friends. So write those names down. And then maybe just people you know by name, but you don't really know what's going on in their life. They're your friends on social media. So write their names on the outside circle, and then I'm going to give you something to do. And if you're struggling to find somebody in that middle group, maybe you need to find a mutual interest. Take up something, a sport, an instrument. Find something that you can do that you can enjoy with somebody else. Running. No one really likes running, right? Maybe some people like running, but something, okay? All right. Now I want to ask you a question. So you think about those 3 people in the middle. When's the last time you asked them a question? Maybe you share your status updates with them like we do on social media, but we are turning our lives into social media status updates. We've lost the ability to ask a question. When's the last time you asked them a question like, how are you? When's the last time you did something for them, like make a sacrifice? Buy them something, connect with something, write them a note say something encouraging to them. When's the last time you made a sacrifice for that friendship? If you're struggling with meaning right now in your life, if you're struggling to have direction and purpose in your life right now, it might be because you haven't asked those most important people in your life, you haven't done anything for them. You haven't asked them a question. You haven't been interested in them. You haven't been concerned about them. You haven't given your life to somebody outside of your own world. And try this out. You start taking your eyes off yourself and you give your eyes to another person, and you will see that you are made by God to love other people. That's what we're made for. That's what gives our life meaning. That's what makes it a part of our story. Okay? Good? I got 16 minutes left. We're going to land the plane here. All right. We got one. I want to look at suffering, meaningful suffering. So about 4 years ago, a member of my congregation, his name is Todd, really successful orthopedic surgeon. I mean, I was talking to him, he would do 7 surgeries a day, shoulder surgeries, knee replacement, all that kind of stuff. And he didn't take a day off, basically. He would be on call on his days off for like 30 years. So helped a lot of people. And he just started taking Tuesdays off at age 57. But right as he did that, he went to go to the dentist, and while he was there, he was going to have a little minor dental surgery, dental operation. They took his blood pressure, and his blood pressure was really high, and that was strange because he's a really athletic and healthy guy. So he had the blood work taken, And the reason his blood work was off, or his blood pressure was off, was because he only had one kidney that was working. The other kidney was totally eclipsed by cancer. He had stage 4 aggressive cancer. He got that phone call when he was on the golf course, and he never went back to the office. He never got the send-off, the retirement he thought. He never got to say really goodbye to his staff. He had to go through immediate treatment. And he'd been a member of our congregation. I actually knew him earlier on when my wife was teaching his son, who was second grade at the time when I was at seminary. So I kind of knew of him, and he was a member of our church. And when I had knee pain, I went in and talked to him. But we were just kind of casual pastor-parishioner relationship. But when he called me and told me that he had stage 4 cancer, he became my friend. And we started meeting every week and started talking about what's life look like now that they gave him like 6 months to live. What is he going to do? What's that going to be like? And so Todd and I, he still felt healthy enough. We would go golfing. He took me out skiing. He's got a place in Montana. He taught me, he was feeling healthy enough to ski. So he taught me how to ski through the trees. And, he was going to die anytime, and I thought I was going to die anytime. I was trying to keep up with him. But it was just really a remarkable, and everything was so meaningful. Because I was like, this could be it for Todd and I. This could be the last time we go skiing. This could be the last time we talk. And one of the big questions that he had was, if I'm going to die, why not just get this all over with? If I can't work, if I can't do the things that I want, what's my purpose anymore? And so he had a crisis of meaning. And this is where I think Viktor Frankl is so good. Even as a secular, he's not a believer, secular psychologist, he would talk about suffering. And this is what he said. When we are no longer able to change our situation, just think of an incurable disease such as inoperable cancer. We are challenged to change ourselves, to turn one's predicament into a human achievement. And so he would say that even if everything's stripped from you, that's what suffering does. Suffering limits us. When you suffer, you can't always do the same things that you wanted to do before. And it seems like your life has less purpose. And Viktor Frankl, he says, you get to choose your attitude. You get to choose what you're going to focus on. And that's the last decision that you get to make. And so when I would meet with Todd, we would talk about the decisions he still gets to make. And we'd read through the book of Philippians. And when Paul, he's in a Roman prison, and he's writing a letter to the Philippians, if you are struggling with suffering right now, that's the letter I would have you read, is the letter to the Philippians. Because Paul would say things like, I might die. I might get executed. I'm in a Roman jail, and any day they could come in and decide to execute me. And if I die, he says, I'll be with Jesus. It's better by far. But then he believed, if I am to go on living, that will mean fruitful labor for me. He believed that even stuck in a jail cell, he had purpose in his life. God was still giving him good things to do. And so he shared his faith with the Roman soldiers. He believed that his attitude in prison was being heard outside those prison walls, that he stood meaning. And so much of the reason I wrote this book, so much of what I want to teach you, is you don't necessarily need to change your circumstances. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you get cancer. Sometimes you're in a jail cell. Sometimes you tear your ACL. Sometimes you get cut from the team. Sometimes you get cut from the band. Sometimes you get an F on that test. Sometimes you're in situations, sometimes you get dumped. Sometimes things happen and you did not ask for it. And you can choose your attitude to believe that God still has a purpose, to believe that God still has fruitful labor for you, to believe that God is still in your life even when you don't understand it. And that can change your whole life. All right. So that's what Paul wrote. When Paul was writing to the Romans, he says, not only so, but we glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope. That's what I've seen with Todd. Todd is just gobbling up every Bible verse he could ever gobble up. I've never seen anybody as hungry as he is for God's word. He wants to talk about it, he wants to read it, he wants to discuss it in a way that I've never seen him or anyone else desire God's word. It's the suffering, the thing he didn't want, the thing he didn't ask for, is producing in him perseverance and hope and character that he could not have gotten before. Now, the book of the Bible that really, I'm reading it actually right now, that's all about suffering is the book of Job. Where Job, he's like, why is all this garbage happening to me? You know the story of Job, where Job loses his family, he loses his kids, he loses his wealth, and he loses his health. He loses it all. And God doesn't tell him why. And he's like, why is all this happening to me? It doesn't make any sense. My life feels totally absurd. It seems totally meaningless. But at the center of the book of Job is usually, when you look at Hebrew poetry, at the center is the main idea. And the book of Job is a book of poetry. At the center of the book of Job is this line. I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end I will stand on the earth. And after my skin has been destroyed, yet in my flesh I will see God. I myself will see him with my own eyes, I and not another, how my heart yearns within me. So Job says, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why all this is happening, but my hope is in the resurrection. That this body that is being destroyed was going to be resurrected. That these children that I lost are going to be resurrected. That this wealth that I lost is going to be resurrected. It's all going to be resurrected and renewed. And God's going to make sense of it. So when life doesn't make sense, our ultimate hope is to look at our story as a part of that 4-part story in the resurrection. And so this is how we can look at it. We can consider our present sufferings, Paul says in Romans 8. I consider our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. So whatever you're suffering right now, the breakup, the injury, the bad grade, the stuff maybe you caused in your life, or the stuff that happened to you, the abuse, the pain, the suffering, your parents' divorce, whatever that is, whatever you're suffering cannot compare with the glory that's going to be revealed in you on the last day when he makes all things new. That gives us hope. Now, I don't know why, but God's been really gracious to Todd. And I want to let you know that last week, I went skiing with Todd again. He's still around, over 4 years later. I think it's maybe, well, I know this at least, God still has a mission for him. God still has things for him to do. And one of them is he's got 3 children, and 2 of them are strained from the faith, and he believes that God has allowed him to still live, really working a miracle that he should not be around anymore so that he can continue to minister to them. And I think some of also the reasons why he's able to continue is because he's looking at his life in view of the last day. And so again, we went skiing. He taught me how to weave through the trees again. And we had another meaningful moment. I wanted to hold on to him and hold on to this week as long as I could because, again, it might be the last time. But that time limit gives us meaning, but we also have a hope that even if it is the last time that I get to ski with Todd and the Lord brings him home to his side, when the Lord renews the world, I believe it's going to be this world. I believe there's going to be mountains, and I think we're going to go skiing again, except this time I'll be able to keep up with Todd. So that gives us a vision of what to look forward to. And so here's my encouragement. Choose a hopeful attitude. Commit to those relationships. And choose a hopeful attitude. Choose to look at the world that you have learned about through the scriptures. That God made a good world. Yes, this world has fallen, and you're part of that fallen world, and you've sinned, and I've sinned, and there's so much garbage and abuse and death and problems, but Jesus has lived for you, died for you, rose for you, and he's coming back again. Choose to have a hopeful attitude that no matter what you're going through, God has a purpose, God has a plan, he's going to create meaning in all of it. So I have one last activity with 4 minutes left. Open up to page 121. There's a little box there. If your life was a graph, like a line graph with ups and downs, I want you to just draw a line graph. Maybe that time you had to change schools, or maybe your parents divorced. I don't know what it is, those times that were down times. And then what are some of the up times? Maybe the time you made the team, the time you sang in that recital, the time you had that new friendship. I want you to draw a graph of your life. So take a moment to just draw your life as if it were a graph, the ups and downs of your life. All right. Now, the reality is you might be like Job and you might not see why God allowed those things to happen to you, the ups and downs. But I wonder if you could see a glimmer of hope there. That through the ups and downs, God has formed you and shaped you, built character and perseverance and hope. That maybe you have become a person who can help other people who've gone through the same things that you've gone through. That maybe through your trials, you become a more compassionate, more loving person for those who've gone through similar trials. And so to choose to see that your ups and downs are part of a greater plan. I wrote the last pages of this book. I went with the writers group. We were out in the Mississippi Valley area, right along the Mississippi. And it's just such a beautiful spot. There was a deer that got up on its hind legs and was like chewing on the leaves right outside. I used an app, a Merlin app, that you could tell there was like 15 different species or types of 15 different types of birds that were out singing around me. And as I wrote the last couple pages of the book, I was just thinking, like, if this world could be this beautiful and yet it's still infected with sin, what is the world going to be like when Jesus comes back again? How great could God make it in a renewed world? And so my encouragement to you is to read the book, to talk about it, to invest in those key relationships, to walk with the Lord, to have hope in everything that you're doing, to not give up, and to live every day in view of the last day. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Ben. We appreciate the time that you spent with us today. We will put the announcements up for you so you can read those. We'll also send you out an email later on today. If you have questions for Pastor Ben, we'll include his contact information there, and we'll probably also send out a form for you to provide some feedback on our spiritual growth session today. After you've read those announcements, God's blessings on your day.